All right, folks, welcome along to another episode of the Made to Pray podcast. You're joining us on episode number 88, and we are going to be talking all things drums, drum accessories, drum maintenance, you name it. If you can hit it with a stick, we're talking about it. And joined by, I like to say, friend of the podcast, Tan for most appearances on the podcast is ex-Royal Marine, Stu Warmington. Stu, how are you, mate?
Not too bad. Yourself? I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, good to see you again, mate. It's been a while since we had a wee chat like this, and it's been a while since the podcast looked. I guess I think it was COVID days whenever this was all going on.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, that just seems like such a long time ago now, and everything that happened in that space of time is like it never happened, and we've just gone on with it. And it was a really strange time.
Yeah, it was definitely, and I think you were on the very first season of the podcast. As far as I'm aware, it's 4 years ago. You're one of the first batch of guests. And then I think you were on the second series as well. You're on with Mo talking about tattoos and stuff, so.
Yeah, God, that seems like a lifetime ago.
I know, doesn't it? I know. So, but absolutely delighted to have you back on, mate. And I suppose also very poignant in terms of the day that we're recording this, because it's the actual, like a birthday or anniversary of the formation of the Royal Marines, isn't it?
Yeah, so today marks the 360th anniversary of the formation of the Royal Marines, which was in 28th of October, 1664. And what's really strange, isn't it? Because we're talking about drumming, there was a drummer there right at the very start of the formation of the Royal Marines, which is why the Royal Marines, the Corps of Drums, or the Buglers branch, is the oldest specialised branch in the Royal Marines, because we were there right at the start. So, drumming's come, a long way in 360 years.
It definitely has, and I suppose we're gonna cover some of those things in regards to, especially in regards to maybe likes of equipment and techniques and things like that there, and how things have progressed. So today, just to set the scene for everybody, is looking at sort of the art of drumming, drum accessories, craftsmanship, and all those kind of things, how things have changed, and God knows where the conversation will lead us. But Stuart, maybe just a good thing for us to start off with, because I'm conscious that not everybody who maybe listens into the podcast now might have either caught those earlier episodes or maybe caught up around yourself. Maybe you could give us maybe a brief background in terms of your drumming journey so far with the Marines, and then obviously with the fact that you're now heading up the marching division at the British Drum Company. And I realize that that's a hell of a lot to kind of sum up in a few minutes in terms of, because there's a way.
Let me see if I can get this done quickly. So a life in drums was always going to happen for me. My father was a drum major, first in the Parachute Regiment, and then the Royal Regiment a few years later. And I grew up with just drums around the house, the ice buckets. I had a pair of sticks in my hand. Well, I say sticks, they were wooden spoons like everybody else, in your grand's kitchen with the pots and pans around you. But I knew from a very early start, one drum was more than enough for me. I couldn't handle any more pots than just one. So it was always there. I remember my dad playing his LPs and saying, I can tell what foot they're on. And I was, at a young age, I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So then he was on about phrasing, and this is generally going to be on the left foot. So I had that sort of education right from the start. And then when I was 13, I joined the Marine Cadets. And then when I was 15, I joined the TA, or the Reserve Army, as it is now, as a junior drummer. And I did that for 6 years, mainly because when I went to join the Marines, which is the one thing I really wanted to do, was be in the Corps of Drums, they'd stopped recruiting due to the redundancies. So I literally waited 6 years for a spot. Got in the Marines in 97, and then, did what I did for 22 years. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. Traveled the world, played for heads of state all over, went to, Kosovo, Iraq, played for charities, earned money, did all sorts. And then in 2015, started up the British Drum Company, and then launched the marching range with the Royal Marines in 2019. And my position there now is International Sales Director for the marching division.
So, Stuart, what we're thinking about doing is, because we've done a lot of stuff that's mainly flute heavy over the last while, and a lot of the bands that we feature, obviously flute bands, but obviously a core part of their performances related to drumming, and drums play a massive part in that. And I thought it would be great to kind of delve into some of maybe the wisdom and things that you've picked up over the years in regards to, technique, and also, but I suppose more for drum care and drum accessories, things that kind of can enhance the drummer's performance, and things like that there. So be good to kind of delve a wee bit into that. But kind of before we do, well, maybe a good place would be to start was, how have you kind of seen the use of accessories and techniques and things like that change in terms of your time from whenever you started with the Royal Marines up until now? Because I know that we'll probably delve into this. There's quite a big evolution that's taken place in terms of not just the type of drum that's being used, but like snare mechanisms, sticks, all sorts of stuff have all kind of changed there. So that's kind of a a very open ended question in terms of,
Yeah.
you could give us a wee
I
brief
mean,
review.
when you think about going back to the history side of it, drumming in the 1800s, the only accessory for the drummer was what they called a ticking bag, and that used to sit on the side of his drum. It was like a white cloth material with blue stripes, and you'll see it rolled up on the side of the drum, and that was the case. That was so when they weren't using it, it got put up in the case. That was the only accessory they had, other than the sling and the sticks. That was it. And when you think about it now, it's progressed so much to, I mean, you can literally get anything. You can get snap-on pads to go on your drums to keep your chops going before you go and perform, to drum keys to, I mean, it's so vast. It's staggering. But, you think we'd get to the point where there's no more, but, companies keep, bringing new stuff out. And you just think, wow, how does this keep on going? And but I suppose that's where it is. But yeah, back in the olden days, it was literally the ticking bag, and that was the only accessory you had. But now you go and see, especially bands with who do marching displays. As part, they're not a parade band. They do displays. They've got the stick quills on the side, and they've got maybe got brushes in. They've got beaters. They've got whatever just to enhance their performance, or make that musical performance a little bit better than just using sticks. So there's, it's incredible. There's just so much stuff out there at the moment.
Yeah. In terms of your journey, then, how have you noticed that things changed for you then? Because obviously, whenever you joined the Marines, you'd have been issued with a certain amount of gear, and then by the time you left, I'm sure there was a bit of a difference there. What kind of changes happened for you in terms of your journey there?
I think the biggest one initially was the sticks. We got two pairs of brown sticks, one for practice and one for performance, which we had to paint ourselves. Which when you join the Marines, you see them on parade. They've got all the glistening badges and everything, the white helmets, and you think, oh, that looks great. It's not until you join up and realize the dress code you've got to sew up yourself. You've got to paint your sticks. You've got to paint your helmet. You just think, well, that bubbles burst a little bit because you don't know about these things. But yes, so sticks was a big one for us. We ended up having to paint our own, and now the guys get them; they're already painted. Different types of sticks throughout my career has changed, not just for on parade the white sticks, but also special performances. So we've had light up sticks, we've had sticks at strobe, we've had like other percussion accessories. When the guys used to do river dance, I don't remember when they used to do that. They had it's basically like a tabletop with three brackets on that used to go over the feet of the drum and used to play on that to mimic the tap dancing in river dance. So they weren't even playing on the drum at all. They were just playing on this white tabletop, which looked like a skin, but to give a different sound. So and that was that's going back. That was before I even joined up. So we're going back before '97. So even then, there's new things coming out, which was a long time ago and has never really been seen since. So things keep changing. And I know in the Marines, you had rope tension drums that then went to Basel drums, and they'll buy equipment for maybe one or a few performances, and then it'll go away, and then a couple of years later it'll come back out again. I know they brought some what they call Roland RMPs, which were electronic drums, and it was only about an 8-inch pad, electronic pad, used to go on a harness, and they connected up to the electrics, and you could change the sound of it, and they'd use them for different performances, either at the Albert Hall, or a lot of them were used in regimental mess dinners, where you can get away with pushing that boundary, because everybody wants to see the white helmets, the sticks on parade, and some of the officers get a bit nervous when you start pushing past that line, and they don't want you to go too far, and so I think that was one of the biggest things I came up against was the is it tradition? Are you going too far? Are you trying to be like top secret or whoever? That was a big thing for us. So yeah, I mean, it's it is evolving, and the guys are getting different types of sticks all the time, and they don't always keep the same brand. They'll give it a couple of years, give it a try, and maybe change it up again. So I think the last time I heard from the Marines, they were using Agna sticks from Switzerland.
Right.
They've used Andantes in the past, so it's just been a whole mixture.
And in terms of even just for size of sticks, because I know whenever I started messing about with drums, I don't know, the tips and the ends of my sticks are really small and thin, and then obviously that expanded out to the more what I would have called more of the pipe bond kind of stick, where the ends kind of really kind of grew in size and stuff. What kind of prompted that? Do you think? What's the in terms of evolving from those smaller kind of beaten ends to what you're using today?
So the Romarines definitely used the smaller sticks, what we'd class as sort of kit sticks, which is what the army use now, pretty much still. And the Marines used to use brown ones, and then they went to thicker ones, and it was basically used it was a pipe band stick by a guy called Bob Turner, and they were made by Potters. Do you remember Potters?
The name's familiar, yeah.
Yeah. So initially, I think initially they were made by Shaw Stick or Rose Morris, and I think they were called the Bob Turners. So then Potters got the die for them and called them Potters BT, and the Marines used them, and they used them for so long. And then it wasn't till probably about 2000 and I'm going to say 8, we then got the Andante ones with the Romarines crest on,
Mm-hmm.
and we used them for a bit. But then, so there was a difference between hand painting them with white gloss and then getting them dipped. So that's the dipping when you dip the sticks, the white, whilst it's not gloss, it's like a matte finish, but also it doesn't, the color doesn't stop the same. It gradually changes color over time. So yeah, so that was the other thing. But yeah, I think it was around about the 80s where they went to these big, or late 70s, these big thick pipe band sticks, and they were still playing them until about 2008.
Right. Okay.
And then since then they've just tried different ones, and the guys are always they're always got the opportunity to try new equipment and see if it works, see if it's better. Are they paying too much for something, or are they are they buying cheap stuff that's not lasting? And
Sure.
so yeah.
Does it make any difference to playing in terms of in terms of the tips of your stick?
Yeah, I mean, it does for different reasons, and also the type of wood it's made from as well. So you'll find pipe band sticks are generally made from maple to get a nice high pitched sound. So strange enough, so I've helped design these ones for Drum One,
Uh-huh.
in Manchester. And what we did was we went, instead of using maple, we've gone for a hornbeam, which is
Right.
European wood, which is stronger than maple. But it's a little bit heavier, so there's plenty to grab hold of. But rather than an acorn, we've gone for a barrel tip, and what
Right.
that means is you get more surface contact on the head, which then gives better projection. So it's little things like that, and these sticks I made them or designed them especially for stick work, really, because there's no other stick out there designed for stick work. And I had noticed in certain bands and certain regiments, rather than it coming up to here, they were slowly coming up to there, and
Right.
that's because the sticks were getting thicker and thicker. That there wasn't enough space. So the idea was this: to get a shorter taper, so you can have it where it should be, or depending on who you are, rather than a thicker one up there and it's covering most of your mouth. So yeah, that's why I designed them. But the tips make a difference. The thickness. If you just gonna look at the Jim Kilpatrick sticks, KP ones, twos, and threes,
Uh-huh.
the ones are so light. I find them hard to play with, but the threes, the chunkier ones, they're a beautiful stick. They're really nice to play with, and so I think it's all personal preference. But it's hard going from, if you're so used to playing with a thin one, going to a thicker one, and vice versa. It feels so alien, and it's hard work.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things because I always remember like my first set of sticks were, say really thin. I think I actually had like nylon tips on the end of them. Looked like somebody had covered them with nail polish or something, and then gradually over the years moving towards well, I suppose maybe I know you were saying about the potters there, but I think most people kind of refer now to sticks to some kind of KP or whatever else, or
Yeah.
he's done a very. It's almost like he's done the GoPro. All the action cameras are just all GoPros, even though they're different
Yeah,
outlets. All sticks or KPs, kind of
yeah,
thing. But in terms of that what I found was I actually found it easier to roll and stuff on the smaller hip than I did initially when I moved to the larger
yeah.
ends and stuff. I don't know whether that's part and parcel of something to do with my technique or just that's part of a transition with the style of stick.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the drum, what surface you're playing on. If you're playing on a hard surface like the kitchen top, if you had a pair of nylon tips, that makes it so much easier because there's a bit more bounce. If you're using nylon tips to play on a cushion, then obviously it's a lot harder. So it all depends on the surface you're playing on and
Uh-huh.
ability and how
Yeah.
you're doing it, I suppose.
Because one of the things I did want to ask you about was you kind of went into it a bit there, but in terms of when obviously I've seen the adverts for the new sticks, and you said that the first sticks that have been designed for specifically for stick work. And I suppose for me my question would have been, what was it that makes up? You kind of answered that a wee bit in terms of the taper and stuff, in regards to it. So how much of a change did you make the standard, what was being used to what you now have as a set of sticks that are for and the stick work? The reason why I'm asking that is obviously a lot of bands in Northern Ireland in terms of the melody scene and beyond. Obviously, there's a lot of them do variation of stick lifting, or some of them are trying to be as close in terms of replicating what the Marines do. What advantage would they get from shifting over to a set of sticks without that being a sales pitch?
What to be honest, it was the Northern Irish market scene I was sort of aiming at because I first went across there and we mentioned this on the first podcast, and prior to 2015 or 14 I had no idea the whole marching scene existed.
Hmm.
So when I first went to my first parade at Market Hill, I mean it was like it was an education. I stood in one spot, I never moved, never saw the same band go past twice. I was there for 5 hours. I mean, it was proper like a busman's holiday, and I absolutely loved it. But within that, I got all the different styles. I got the Blood and Thunder, the Silver Bands, the Flute Melody. I got to see every single style. And what I did see was there was a lot of people trying to get power and projection and noise basically. And that was one of the things I was looking at. How can I get more projection and power out of the sticks? And that boils down to the weight of the stick, or the wood, like the density of the wood, and the contact with the head. So they were the two things I looked at first. I did want to design a stick for stick work because of that stick thing was starting to annoy me with it creeping in. So the thing was to find the right wood, work out what tip was going to be best. I sort of knew it was going to be barrel tip anyway, but and then work out the taper at the front of it. So not a lot is being sorted out, but just the three separate things pushed together is will make a difference.
Okay, and one of the things that you mentioned there was around about your observation of bonds, and obviously something around volume, and in terms of that there. And one of the things that it's been, I suppose, for me has been a bugbear for me in regards to sound and stuff here. Has been obviously a lot of the Blood and Thunder bonds here use in terms of the high tension drums, in terms of the what would be considered for me would be pipe bond drums in terms of that, and they're trying to be as loud as possible. And yet the thing for me is that in terms of trying to get a balance of sound, so maybe this is my theory, so maybe you can help me with this in regards to this. So I always think of things around balance in terms of bass, middle, and treb, and in terms of if you want to get the loudest sound, you need a good balance of all three. You need to have good bass, whatever's sitting in the mids, and whatever's sitting in that high range. But whenever you're playing almost everything that's in a high range, then it's hard. Is it harder to get good volume and projection when you're in that? Because if you've got high tension drums which are in that really trebly kind of range, and then you've got flutes that are playing very much up in that higher register all the time, and then the only real bass that you have is the bass drum. For me, it makes it difficult to get the volume that they're actually looking. I don't know whether that's, I'm not looking for justification, but I'm kind of like thinking, is there somebody here with knowledge who could say yes, that may be the case?
I mean, when it gets to high tension drums, it gets to a point where you can't make any more noise. It gets to a point where that is, it'll get to a point where, regardless of what you're using to hit it with, that's as loud as that drum's going to go. When it gets to like the low tension drums, you know, if you've got a twin snare drum and you've got a drum that's just got a single snare, that single snare drum will overpower the twin snare.
Yeah.
It's because generally it's going to be tuned a lot looser, so you get that lower pitch, and that'll deafen the higher pitched. And I used to see this all the time when I used to judge competitions. You get a core of drums with maybe six people with twin snare drums, and then you got little Johnny at the back who's just joined the band, struggling to carry a drum. So he's got this little single, a sort of cheap drum that he can carry, single snared, and he would overpower the six at the front because it's just so deafening. So people go for twin snare drums to try and get the power, but half the time you don't need it. You've just got to one's about tuning your drum correctly, but also it is picking the right drum for your band and make sure you get what you want out of it.
Yeah, no, and I think for me there's also the thing for me is in regards to the style of drumming that we have here for a lot of bands is that it's like a hybrid kind of style of drumming, isn't it? It's kind of part pipe band, part military type thing, and I think maybe obviously the high tension drums make some of the settings that they're using maybe that all that wee bit easier maybe in terms of the way the stick will bounce and roll and stuff. Whereas if they were playing on a single snare drum that might not be easy to replicate.
Yeah, I mean, there is a way of going louder on a high tension drum, and that would be to switch over to a drum corps drum. Because basically what they do in America is to put a Kevlar head on the top and a special Kevlar head on the bottom, and the guts are on metal. They're just nylon, and you can really crank that down and get high pitched, which would then give you you can get a lot more projection.
Right.
But that's never going to happen over there. But never say never.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want a projection, there is other ways, but you'd have to change the sound.
Yeah, no, and I think it's something for me is that I've listened to people because one of the things that I suppose oh God, I'm showing my own bias here, I suppose, in some shape or form is it just for me with the amount of because obviously then a lot of the Blood and Thunder bands here as a result of that are carrying a lot of drummers and for the amount of drums that some bands are carrying, their drums don't carry that type of volume. Some bands walking with 14, 16, 18 plus drummers and you expect it to be absolutely thunderous, and it's not. Which kind of goes against their genre of being Blood and Thunder. In terms of giving it that real sense of oomph.
Yeah, and that goes back down to the accessories as well. If you got 12, 15, in the core, and you've cranked your drum down and you cranked it down, but you've never changed the head. It gets to a point where you can't crank it, and that skin's going to become loose. And it's for a high tension drum, you're sort of defeating the object. You're not going to get the sound you're after. So there is a need to keep changing over heads on a regular basis as well.
Okay, well maybe we'll get into that a wee bit later on in terms of in terms of drum maintenance, because I think that there's something there for everyone to be thinking about, as you say, about how often you're changing your heads, and I suppose that goes for all of the drums that you use, the single snare, double snare, high tension, and even bass drums as well, in terms of keeping things right there, because obviously bass drums over here take a serious level of abuse, and in terms of tuning things up and that. But you remember, can you ever remember a time when you were performing, whenever the right equipment made a difference for you? That you were obviously aware of. If we didn't have this stuff, then our performance could be affected.
I mean, that's a great question, and it is pausing me to really think about it. But I think the only time for to have an accessory or a bit of equipment that's helped the performance is when we've done something not out in the public, if you know what I mean, where it's been inside or it's to a special audience, because without these certain things like the electronic drums, harnesses, it's you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And like I said before, you need to advance. And we've done all sorts. We've dressed in black jogging bottoms, black hoodies with white masks, and we've literally done all sorts of different things. And I mean, it's a tough question, but I think the Marines try and get the best kit they can get if possible. So we just whatever we kit we get, we try and make sure it is justifiable for the job we do. And yeah, I don't really know how to answer that one, Glenn. To be honest,
Right, no worries.
yeah, it's a bit. So the Marines don't really use, and I don't really do too much drumming myself now, but other than to enhance pieces of music, like I said before, brushes or rods or whatever, even triangles or you know which have been attached to the drums. Yeah, there's not really anything I can think of, to be honest.
Right. Okay. And because one of the things that we talked about before was obviously the drums that the Marines use have changed over time as well. There in terms of they were premier users for quite some time. They made a shift to pearls, which wasn't very successful, and then I think that's where the British Drum Company came in not long after the Pearl disaster, and these guys then created something that works for them specifically. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so the Marines were on premiers for, I mean, as long as I can remember. When because I'm quite a, anybody will tell you I'm a bit of a Premier enthusiast when it comes to marching. I've got a few Premier drums myself. I collect all the catalogs from back to the 50s, 60s, and even then, it's you see the pictures on the catalogs. It's the Marines, and it's what used to be the 67, and then the 67S, and then the Royal Scot, and you know they've always been with Premier. And the reason they changed across to Pearl was because they had some drums on order, and they just never arrived. Premier were having shipping issues or whatever it was, and the Marines basically said, right, we need some drums, and Pearl was the only people around who were at the time willing to do something. And then so I think they got them in 2012. I think they got the Pearl drums, and then obviously I left, and then I purposely didn't go to the Marines. I sort of kept me distance, and I was I was working on the gods. It was
Uh-huh.
was who I was working on. And then they came to us and said, look, we're thinking about changing the drums. Can we work together and try and come up with something? So I was like, yeah, great, that's fine. And any issues we had with the previous drums, whether it be Pearl or Premier, or any of the good parts we had with the Pearl and the Premiers, we then made sure the good parts were in this drum and the bad parts were taken out, or we never, made the same mistake again. And that's where it went. And we started off with a drum we had, and then we changed I think the problem was the top snare mechanism in the original drum was over engineered.
Hmm.
And it was, for people who aren't necessarily drum fanatics, it was a bit overcomplicated. So we decided to change that. And this was after the axial pipe band drum had come out. And we found that top snare mechanism worked really well. So then we converted that to be able to be a parallel action. And we put that in, and that's one that's been in ever since. And I think that was a very good change we made. And that's something we do. We don't just sit, that's the drum done and out it goes. We still constantly evolving and changing things. Even if we don't advertise it, we'll just change something internal if it's going to make it better.
Sure. And talk us through what that parallel action is. Well, what difference does that make into the drum for the person who's playing?
So all it does is it's so any sort of military drum, whether it be the Andante military series, whether it's the Pearl Viscount, the Premier 97S, our RS1, they basically have two snare mechs, and they can both. When it means parallel action, it means you can drop them both off. So you can have both the snares on, you can have the top one off, you can have them both off, or you can just have the bottom one on, and that just gives you a different sound. So this is a good thing about having a drum with twin snares. If you want to enhance your performance without having to change anything, you can take your top snare off, and that'd be great for if you've got a flute band that sort of wants to play like that. If you want it a bit more crisper, you put your top snare on, or if you're playing, I don't know, let's say something like River Dance, you knock both your snares off, and then you get that sort of tomba music. So it just gives you more options. Where in pipe band, they've always been, it got to a point where when it came to the high tension, the cage systems that we all know, like the HTS, they just remained fixed, and you couldn't turn them on or off. That was the thing, and that's not changed throughout the years. So yeah, it just allows the drummer to change the sound of the drums.
Okay. And then if we move in and talk a wee bit more about, let's break down some of the side drum accessories side of things, because we've talked a lot about I suppose, sticks there, and we've talked about, I suppose a wee bit about weight balance, wood types, and customizations and stuff. What other are there any other things that need to be taken into consideration for sticks too, or is that kind of the gist of it?
I'd say, well, if we talk about sticks, it's all down to what people like. It's people say I like to have this weight, but then they'll go and throw a load of grip tape on, or they'll then paint them white. So that weight that they think that they like, they then change the weight of it. So unless you're a really good drummer, weights don't really come into it. Them sticks are in different weights if you want them. But generally, if people are taping them up, or painting them, or putting grip tape on, which some people do to help with the stickiness of them, your weights are going out the window then, because you're picking a weight you like and then changing the weight of the stick.
Yeah.
But I think, talking about accessories, I think the one biggest thing is after you buy your drum as a case, I can't stress how important that accessory. That's the one accessory you should be thinking about before you even buy any sticks. Because it's the one thing that's going to protect your instrument. You've spent all this money, or spent all this time fundraising or saving up, or however you're buying your drum, and then you spend all this money, and then you've either got nothing to put it in, or you're putting it in a bed sheet, or whatever you can find. So I think it's worth carrying on that fundraising opportunity to get a suitable case.
And in terms of what are the options, because I know for some people there's almost like the bag, it's like slightly padded, and then you've got right through to the drum casing in terms of what would be more of I suppose for me a travel solution as well in regards to that. Talk us through some of the options that people have in that area, and if ballpark figures around prices and things, if you have that offhand.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does a version of a case, whether it be a soft case or a hard case. What I would say is, depending on how much you're spending on your drum, dictates how much you're spending on your case. Now, cases can range anywhere from 30 quid up to 250 quid. But if you're spending £500 plus on a drum, you don't want to be spending £25 on a case, because it's not going to do the job. It's like buying a Rolls Royce and sticking it under a gazebo. You would just never do it. So, and I know people go, well, it's only a case, but it's worth the money. If you want it to last, that's what it's worth doing. So you basically got your soft case options and your hard case options. So your soft case is, the main one out there is Protection Racket. They've been going years. They started off making surfboard covers, and then they just dominated the drum set world. That's now distributed by Yamaha. That's how big that's got. They've taken over that. And they're the sort of soft cases. They've got like sheepskin lining, and it comes with a handle. Very sort of tough material. And the good thing about the soft cases is, if you're driving somewhere and you've got to throw a couple of drums in the boot of your car, you can squeeze them in. That's great. Whereas a hard case, they take up a bit more space, so it's not really practical for that side of it. Now, if you're off to France, or the band's going to battlefield tours or wherever, then ideally you want a nice hard case that can throw underneath the bus and it's not going to get damaged. So it all depends on what your role in the band is and how often your band travels, or how you want to protect your drum. But yeah, so Hard Case is a company. So the Hard Case is called Hard Case, and that's in Chesterfield in England, just down the road from British Drum Company actually, and they make everything on site, and it's an incredible place to see these cases being made. So I mean, I've got both, and sometimes I use both together. If I'm traveling a long distance, I'll put inside me Protection Racket bag, and then put it inside my hard case. And my hard case, they come in different styles. They can be lined. They can have wheels on, so like a trolley handle, you can pull it along. I know the Marines have got them for the bass drums, because obviously the bass drum's probably the biggest nightmare out of all the drum cases. But it just means they can put the suit cover on it, and they can just wheel this one thing rather than trying to carry the bass drum. And for years it was them. I don't know if you remember them, the cardboard cases. They're like compressed cardboard, and they were black, like sort of hexagonal, and they didn't last long once they got wet.
No, it's only in the last while, or a lot of years, that I've actually seen bass drums here, appearing out of cases, or that kind of thing. Even we've just got like a a soft type case for our bass drum, because generally a lot of the time this is the other thing I suppose in terms of, a lot of the times whenever we're about there, the cases don't actually come with us. They're only there for whenever the event's over, and then you're trying to put things away, and then a lot of times drums are not even being put in the case; they're just being put into the back, into the boot of the car, or put somewhere else. And that there's any tips in terms of trying to look after the drum in that scenario, because I know that's another bugbear for me, because you'll get things like if you're on parade, you don't take the case with you, you get onto a bus, and they're left sitting on the floor or whatever else. You know what I mean? It's not ideal, like, but
I mean, if it's, I don't think hard cases are really suited for, the bands over there. They are, but, for how you parade and everything, So to get a soft case, it pretty much takes up the same space as a drum. So personally, I think it's down to the bands or the bandmasters or the band leaders to say, look, if you're taking that in your car, it needs to go in a case, because all it takes is for somebody to slam on the anchors. If you've got a couple of drums there, they're going to bash together. And you literally, you get there, you pull the zip round, you pull it out. It's literally less than a second difference, but it's going to protect the drum. So it's just, getting that education and getting that banged into people's heads that, look, you need to put it in your case,
Yeah.
even if it's a 20, 30 pound case, putting it in some sort of case is better than not putting it in a case.
Yeah. So just in terms of that, anything's better than nothing in terms of, just initial transportation. Because I know when we maybe arrive somewhere, we're getting on a bus, and it's not like, the cases are coming with us, you know what I mean? The cases are being left behind and stuff, So, but it's always, I think that's where some of potential damage can take place in regards to that. So I don't know what the solution to that might be in regards to.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the soft cases take up pretty much the same space as a normal case, so it's not going to make any difference whether it's under the bus or, in the car. I'd be, I am a bit of a disciplinarian, but I'd be really enforcing that if I had a band.
Yeah.
And, there's fines otherwise.
You're going to be speaking a lot of people, some people's language there as well. But no, but it is one of those things. I mean, at the end of the day, drums aren't cheap. In terms of, regardless of what you're buying. I mean, what's the standard price on an RS1? What are you talking for a single drum?
I think at the moment they're about 800. I think 750, 800. It depends on where you get them from.
Yeah.
We don't sell that. We don't sell direct. But this is what I was saying. You spend a lot of money on a drum to then put it in a £20 case. But the other thing is, you're talking about people, that they just throw the drum under. I guarantee you, if they had to pay for that drum themselves and not the band, they'd be putting it in a case. They'd be making sure it was all, wrapped up and looked after. And
yeah.
But because it's, I see it all the time in youth bands, and it's not just drums, it's any instruments. It can be cymbals are probably one of the worst things I see thrown around.
Yeah.
But if it was their own, they'd look after it, and it's just some sort of discipline that needs to be. It's hard because you're trying to get into a discipline that's never been there. To then, you're gonna get people who are going to push back and say, "Well, we've never done this," and But it's affecting the band, because later on they're going to have to spend more money.
Repairs
to replace it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because the only thing that I can kind of. I mean, obviously, in terms of, for me with guitars and stuff, I can bear that out. The more expensive my guitars got, the better the protection that you put on the cases that you had, or the cases that you were looking for, or they actually came with an extremely protective case, and maybe that's something for drum manufacturers to maybe look into as well, and say, well, listen, if you're going to spend this amount, we'll be putting. It could become with a case as well. Do you know what I mean? In terms of making sure that it's there, because a lot of times they just come in obviously in the cardboard box, don't they, with a bit of packaging around them, and then the casing's separate to that. But I know for me, whenever I made the move from a 300-400 pound guitar, and whenever I bought a Loudon, and it was like when the case was one of these Hiscox things, and it was just shock proof, drop proof. This kind of, no matter what happens to this case isn't cracking or breaking, and nothing's gonna, happen to your guitar inside that. And for me, that was an extra peace of mind. And even if I was thrown into the price, in terms of what you were paying for. For me, that was a solid investment because the
Yeah.
idea of that guitar just being left in a standard potted carrier gig bag just like doesn't appeal to me at all because and one of the guitars that I lost whenever I not lost when I say lost somebody stood on the case and broke the thing, and it was because it was one of those, it was a flimsy lightly potted gig bag that the guitar was in, and the person moved their stood backwards and snapped the neck on the guitar, and then I was like, right, okay, this is a bit shit. So, but
I mean, sorry, that's a prime example. People take notice once the damage has already happened. Then they'll go, "Oh, I'm not having that happen again. I'm going to spend, I don't know, 80 quid on a case." Well, if you'd done that in the first place, you'd still have your guitar or your drum or clarinet or whatever that is.
yeah,
So most people react to it happening, then they start paying the money. But I think one of the issues we've got in the UK is, I'm just as bad as this for certain things. We don't like spending lots of money on something. We want everything as cheap as possible, best quality, and it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
yeah,
UK is so bad for it, and I'm the same. I will not spend a lot of money on a phone lead, on a mobile, a charging lead. I refuse to. Knowing fine well that in 3 months' time I'm going to be buying another one.
yeah.
But I just, for me, I'm just thinking it's not worth it. But over the course of a year, I've probably been better off spending £20. But it's that mentality, and it is there. I understand when people are buying the stuff themselves or the treasurers and what have you.
But it's part of, I think for me, it's the budgeting that you need to take into consideration, because one of those things is it's fine, especially even with the likes of the government, the Arts Council grants here for instruments and stuff as well. I know they ask for an insurance policy to be attached to it, but for me, the idea would be, shouldn't there be something within the funding framework that says how these things going to be taxed just beyond the idea of insurance as well, so that, protective casing becomes part and parcel of the deal anyway, and we should be, and even for flutes as well, I think, having, while some people love a wee leather pouch and stuff like that, for me, the hard case is definitely the better option there, in terms of, especially for some people who are carrying the likes of Crown's heads and, older type flutes and things like that. That's not a back pocket job. You know what I mean? That needs to be, in a proper case somewhere. And, but I think it's definitely something bonds should be taken into consideration whenever they're budgeting for anything. And I think that stands true for, it's not just for instruments, but for uniform as well. The amount of times that, you see bonds with new uniforms and there's no protection for them whatsoever. There's no suit bag, there's no hot bag, there's nothing to put a belt in out of the way. And, it's, so it's probably something as the scene as a whole could probably learn from. I know there are a few bonds out there who do that, but I think on the whole, it's kind of, listen, this has cost us a fortune and we don't have any more money left to pay for anything,
No, and that's it. It's that sort of, quantity over quality side of it. And, I've got a saying, and, I say this all the time is, buy cheap, buy twice, because that's what tends to happen. I know you want to get the drums or I know you want to get the flutes. Just wait a little bit longer, carry on fundraising, get through with what you've got until you've got enough to get the protective equipment to go with it, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. No, definitely. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about as well, and this is a conversation we were having prior to even coming on board here, is drum heads. And in terms of the types of drum heads, and and it's something that I've run into over the last wee while in terms, especially with the likes of bass drum heads. And you were mentioning earlier on about changing snare heads on a regular basis as well. Talk to us a wee bit about that, because obviously some people get locked into a particular company and they don't go beyond all that. There's no brand loyalty and all that kind of stuff. But in your opinion, what should people be looking for in regards to the snare heads that they're actually using? What's your recommendation? What's the best quality stuff that's out there at the minute? And I suppose for me, also for maybe the likes of bass drum heads and things like that, what kind of wisdom can you share with us there?
I mean, that's such a vast thing. What I will say is, at one point there was really only one option. Remo sort of was there for as long as anybody could remember. So there's a lot of people who don't know of any other brands that are out there other than if you're high tension heads, there's really only three brands. You got Remo, you got Andante, and you've got Evans. But Evans is a even then, Evans is a new brand, or it's not new, but it's especially the marching scene in the UK. People don't really know who they are, even though they've been around for years and years, and they're constantly evolving.
Hmm.
Heads and and they also own Pro Mark stick company. So it's a company called Adario, and they have a lot of umbrella companies underneath. One of them being Evans, and they you just got to go on their website and just see what they do. But they're constantly evolving. They do a lot of marching stuff in the US, so you'll
Right.
see a lot of different types of Kevlar heads over there, different snare sides. So you have the batter head, which is what you play on, and then what you have what they call the snare side, which is what goes underneath. And there's all different options. And what I would say to people is just just because you've always used Remo or you've always used whatever doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a go at something else and change it over. So just to give you an example, I've got a couple of heads here actually. I don't even know how they're going to sound over the top of this. So basically, there's two heads here for a snare drum. One's aimed at a twin snare drum. So this is called a Remo Dynamax. And all that is a single ply of 10 mil. So it's not plies as in, it's not mils as in how we think. So it's just a single ply, brilliant white. Now, if I was to bang that, it's quite open. Now, so here, you've got a single ply of 10 mil again, but what you have got here is an internal dampening strip, and then inside that, there's a felt dampening strip that can be pulled out. Now, if you were to use a single snare drum, or a drum with a single snare, so if you remember, that's what this one sounds like. So you've got that sort of ring, this one with the dampening in. I don't know if you can hear the difference, but that cuts down all the sustain and everything.
Yeah, see, Stu, I think with the joys of Zoom here, whenever you hit those kind of things with it being sort of musical, it blanks it out. So you can't really, you can't hear those at all.
Okay, so what I will say is because it's, you know what it's like, and I sort of mentioned it with little Johnny at the back where he's got that single snare drum. They really overpower. They're really strong. But what happens is it's a large drum. People are cranking it down. It's getting shorter and shorter, and you're getting these higher pitched overtones.
Right.
And it's a horrible ringiness that you get by putting a Remo Power Max on a single snare drum. It changes the sound of it completely. I honestly can't recommend them enough for single snare drums. You get a whole depth of range then, and you get rid of that horrible overtone.
So does that make it sound where sometimes people are cranking them and it becomes that what I call hurting the ears a wee bit, where it kind of gets a bit annoying?
Yeah, because if you imagine any instrument like a trombone, it's big, so you get a really deep sound. You get a piccolo, it's a high pitched sound, so the bigger the instrument. So if you imagine a drum, you're cranking it, that's getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and the pitch is getting higher and higher and higher. And that's not what you want. You want to just tune it up nice, set your snares right, and you're good to go. And what people don't realize is when you're drumming, the sound waves go down the drum. And what happens is people go, oh, my drum's detuned. On the top, crank, 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 crank. Off we go again. Get the end of the parade. Turn around, come back again. Oh, it's happened again. Crank, 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 crank. So what's happening is it's the bottom head that detunes mainly. So it goes down, and they're constantly chasing it. Rather than just turning the drum upside down and lifting it back up again by cranking the snare side, that would save people a lot of head issues, because I just know people just go mad, and it's not even a quarter turn, it's a half turn here, right the way around, and you're pushing it too fast. It literally, you wouldn't believe how much a quarter turn on every tension rod does to the tension of that drum. It makes a huge difference. So it's that education of how a drum works, and how the sound travels and how the projection works, and whether your drum's pointing straight or whether it's pointing to the side, sound goes a different way as it does if it's coming out that way. If you're playing on grass, the sound just disappears on a drum. It just gets absorbed. So it's, we spoke about tuning before, and that's the other thing is tuning for your environment. So if you tune your drums up the band hall and then you go and you're playing in a concert hall on the grass, it's going to sound completely different. You need to, before you go out in the parade or wherever, quickly tune your drums to that environment, and then off you go. But it's getting that education, get people used to doing it. And I know what it's like, especially over there. People are late getting in or stuck in traffic, and you're getting there just as you're about to set off. So I don't know, it's a tough one. It just takes a drum leader to be, in charge of the core and really
Yeah.
go at it.
And know what they're doing, to be honest with you, to have an idea really what we should be sounding like. Because I like the idea, because one of the things I'm glad you kind of showed the Power Max head for a snare, because most people might only be aware of the Power Max head in regards to bass drums, and in terms of the fact that there's that the auto dampener that's already built into that there, and the effect that that can have on a bass drum sound. And I think some people try to replicate that with sort of homemade attempts at because they don't
Yeah,
want to pay the extra 20 quid for the head. They try and it looks like a toilet seat that's been taped onto the inside of the skin and stuff. But that makes a difference for the bass drum sound as well, because one of the things that people want to get here is resonance, and that kind of that booming sound. It makes the bass drum stand out, and yet the way the bass drums are being tuned here and then being blattered the absolute death has an impact. Because what happens there with the impact on that is it's affecting the tuning rods and stuff and everything whenever it's being whacked like that. And no wonder people are having to adjust it on a regular basis.
yeah, and if you, I mean, I'll just quickly go into this, but like I said, it's got the felt damping strip. So if you felt that it's too dampened, you can just pull it out, and
Yeah.
that opens up the head a little bit more. But yeah, bass drum tuning, and I understand over there. But a lot of they've had them quite loose. So what happens is if you start off with a bass drum that's loose, the more you bang it, it's going to get looser and looser.
Yeah.
And it's you're going to get divots in the bass drum head, and also the type of mallet you use as well, or beater, is vital. I've seen these massive. I mean, they're pretty much what you'd use to hit a gong. That's what they are, and they've been taped up so you can get a good grip. And really, it's not helping your heads at all. Ideally, you want like a round beater. It goes down to the surface contact again. What
Yeah.
sort of sound you want. If you just want to hammer 10 bells out of it, then yeah, go ahead, get your your big thunder blasters and go for it. But these Power Max heads aren't cheap. You're going to be
Yeah.
spending 80 quid a head. It's £160 a drum, and the amount of parade you do during the season, in theory, you should be changing the heads, every 4 weeks, every month, because it's going to be hammered. Where if you just lay off a little bit, they'll last a little bit longer and make sure it's tuned up to begin with. And I think the other thing to think about is, we're talking about accessories. You can get a thing called Luglocks.
Right.
What they do is, I haven't got anything here, but if you imagine that's the tension rod, before you screw it into the what do you call it? Bloody hell! What? Oh my god, I can't remember the terminology. Anyway, before you screw it in, what you do is it's like a little ring, and you just screw it all the way up. Screw that in as you would do normally into your drum. Lug. That was the word, lug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tune your drum up, and then what you do is once it's tuned up, this lug lock, you screw down and you put it tight, and that stops that tension rod from moving.
Right.
So even when it's you're banging 10 bells out of it, that's not going anywhere.
Right. Okay.
So it's this is what I'm on about. This education. There is stuff out there that would help, especially in over there in the marching scene. That would help, especially the bass drummers, whether it be the choice ahead, the Luglocks, beaters. There's so much that can enhance the performance
Yeah.
without having to badger your drum and break it.
Yeah, no, and I think because one of the things that you'll notice, you were mentioning there about the bass drum skins sort of bubbling and divoting and things like that there, and you see a lot of that, and that is, as you say, because the skin's almost flapping anyway to try and get all that sound. And one of the things that I always, and obviously sometimes it falls on deaf ears, like going, if you had a properly tuned bass drum, you probably wouldn't need to beat the life out of it, and still get the same type of power and sound that you would like. Because one of the things I always reference is whenever you hear a pipe band and you hear that boom that comes off the bass drum there. I mean, they're not hitting those things in terms of with any real sense of power whatsoever. And you're talking about standing out, in terms of maybe some of those cores, the drum cores are maybe 14, 15 strong with one bass drum, and the bass drum stands out over the top of them. You don't need the strain to be able to hear it. You know what I mean? And that's down to technique and awareness of your instrument.
Yeah, and also where you wear it. If you notice, a lot of the pipe band drums, or the bass drums, they're up here. The
Yeah.
guys can't see where they're going. They're in the sort of walking to the side. But generally, once they get into the arena, they're not moving. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why, because it's been lifted up. So when they are hitting it, that sound's going out and it's not being absorbed into the band members around. But
Uh-huh.
there is a drum company in America who designed a drum that you could literally look through. Uh, so it's got a hole in the shell in both sides, and then it's got some sort of like clear plastic on the inside, so you can literally see where you're going. You basically look straight through the drum shell. And I don't know if they sell many, but I can see why they've done it. I'm not too sure how that works with the sound, or if it affects the sonic properties or what. I don't know, but it's there's people there looking to how they can improve what they're doing already.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's important to realize that this isn't just a case of strap a drum on and go for it, really, which is where I suppose maybe there is a mindset of that here, that, there's a lot more to take into consideration in terms of acoustics, dynamics, and projection and all that kind of stuff, because we had a deal where we changed the harness that we had, and the bass drum then set a lot higher, and people couldn't, the bass drummers couldn't see. But when the parade that we actually used that on for the first time, the bass drum really did stand out a lot more, because obviously it was projecting up into the air. It wasn't getting caught in the sound waves around it, so the flutes weren't trying to, wasn't going to the ground and bouncing back or hitting off people and stuff like that. There, you can, there's more of a science to this than people give credit, is there?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like some of the American drum lines or Top Secret, the bass drummers don't always face forward. They'll turn to the side, but not just, they don't all turn to the same side, so they'll turn inwards.
Yeah.
So you're getting the left hand and you're getting the right hand facing, coming out towards the audience. So it's it's not just a case of putting the drum on and off you go. You got to think about your projection of your drum. Where's your audience? You can really go into depth to make your performance so much better than what it is, or you can just go out there and do what you normally do. It all depends on your band and if you want to spend that time doing it. But there's a lot to think about if you really want to delve into performances.
And because the other thing that always amazes me is that whenever you look at those American setups, where they have 4 and 5 bass drums, different sounds and all that kind of, or different sizes, sorry. And they're all tuned differently, aren't they? They're all tuned to different notes to kind of give them that kind of musical kind of sensibility, aren't they?
Yeah, and for me, and I'll go back to Top Secret. When because I've been a fan of Top Secret from when I first saw them, and it wasn't the snare drums that appealed to me. It was what they call the bass line, and you just see them. You just see the and it's just what they call splits, and they're just running up and down. That takes some serious sight reading to learn, because you've got to be there on the money, otherwise it's going to mess everything up. That takes a lot of skill. But yeah, the range anything from a 14, so a bass drum the same size as that, all the way up to a 20 or a 22. But yeah, I mean it's impressive, especially when you go across to America and see some of them warming up, and it's amazing.
No, it is, and I suppose that brings me to the tuning thing as well. And so, Stu, what's the easiest way for people to get a better handle on tuning their snares and tuning their bass drums? Because for me, this is a kind of this also comes into the maintenance aspect as well. We've already kind of hinted to this. If we know how to tune our drums properly, or in terms of getting the sound that we want, there will be more longevity from the instrument, etc. But what's the best way for someone to start that? I know people will go, oh, we know we tune in a star direction, but most people don't do that. And other people, in talks, and especially with bass drums and stuff, tune into particular notes and things like that there in regards to. So talk to us, if you were thinking about this because a lot of people here will be, especially the melody bands, it'd be probably along the line of that more military kind of style of getting their drums to sound like that. So how would they go about doing the tuning of their snare drums and making sure that their bass drums aligned with that as well?
What I'd say is, to understand how to tune a drum, you need to know how the drum works. So you need to spend a bit of time, if you've got a top snare and you've got a bit for your drum key on that side and that side, one's always height and one's always tension. One, you need to know which is which, and also you need to know what it does. It's no good just, right, I need to tune the drum up and I need to put my drum key in and turn it and hope that it's going to sound good. You've got to understand what happens when you turn the height and when you turn the tension. Now, obviously, if that's your snare wire, if you're doing height, that's going to go up and down. If you're doing tension, the snare wire is going to do that.
Yeah.
But ideally, what you don't want to do is you don't want to put everything on high, like the height and all the tension all the way on, or that's just going to force everything outside your playing area. And what you want is a sweet spot in the middle of the drum. So the idea is if you're heightening it, you then put a bit of tension on. After you get that sort of arch, whatever you do with one, you're going to do the opposite to the other. So if you're going to raise it, you then need to lower this a little bit. Or if you're going to raise that a little bit more, you need to lower that. Otherwise, you're just going to push everything up. So you need to understand, especially the top snare mech, how that works. The bottom snare mechs, if you're putting a snare wire on, you need to understand that the bit that knocks on and off, you can adjust the height on that. You need to make sure that when you're putting that on for the first time, that snare mech is in the middle. Because if it's not in the middle and you tighten everything up and you didn't realize, but it's nearly at the top, you're going to bottom out, which means you've got nowhere to go. So it's mainly setting the drum up before you even start tuning it. Make sure that you know how the top snare mech works. You know what side's height, what side's tension. Luckily, our drums and Andante drums have literally got height and tension written on the left and right, so you can see what side does what.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically, I always start once you got your heads on, I knock all my snares off, and I start on the bottom head. Now, there's so many accessories you can use now. There's apps, there's tuning apps, there's drum dials, there's tune bots, and for somebody starting off, TuneBot does it to a pitch. A drum dial does it to a number. It's easier to work out if you just want to get them all the same. For me, because I've done it so long, I sort of know what sound I'm after. But I'll just tune the bottom head so you can just sort of push it in. It's not rock solid, but you can get a little bit of
flex.
Yeah, and then turn it over, do the top. So at this point, I've not touched any of the snares or anything. That'll have a bit more tension on it. You'll be able to, you can flex it, but it's still quite tough. And then what I'll do is I'll put the bottom snare on, and what I'm looking for is that sound like what I'd class as an old guard's musician's drum. When you hear them coming out the palace, that sort of quite openness. 9 times out of 10, I get the sound with the snare. Once I get the snare right, I'll then just do a quarter turn on the top, because I know that's what it'll need, and then I'll start on the top snare, and then that's just a case of doing the height, the tension, and what normally happens is I normally get it to just as it's nearly there, but not right, and then a quarter tension all the way around the top, and that normally just then puts it into the place I want. But for me, I know what sound I'm after, but that's only because of years of experience. But
yeah,
the trick is to get one person to tune your drums, and what you should do is, if you're tuning them by ear, let's say you've got 6 drums. You tune number 1 drum, and then you tune number 2 drum off number 1 to sound the same. Now, what you shouldn't do is then tune number 3 drum off number 2, because by the time you get to number 6, there'll be a slight difference all the way down. So always tune with your first drum to try and match it. And it's just a case of tapping in between the tension rods. Just go tap, 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 and you'll hear the pitch. Tap to the next one, and the pitch changes. Either loosen it off, tighten it up, whatever you need to do. It's the same all the way around. The good thing about now is you're saying what's changed over the years. Social media, that's what's changed more than. There's so much content out there now for how to tune drums, how to clean drums, how to look after them, what happens if they get wet, how to change snare wires. 30 years ago, none of this was around. So there's it's there. It's at a fingertip now if people are a bit unsure how to do this or how to do that.
Yeah, no, and I think what I think that you're mentioning is useful in regards to in terms of the fact that the social media things there, and you can kind of almost find anything you want. But sometimes I think, especially because of the relational nature of marching bands, that sometimes, getting that knowledge off somebody direct, or somebody being right in front of you and going, like, here's where this should be going, kind of locks in a wee bit better, because there's a sense of, something being passed on or whatever else. For me personally, I watch videos till the cows come home. But there's something about that, personal kind of touch here. Well, why don't you try this? And someone drawn alongside you and going, well, listen, do this. Because I remember whenever someone probably showed me about even trying to tune bass drums, and they were like going, right, what you'll do is you put your finger in the middle of the bass drum, a wee bit of tension in there, top one of your top, near one of your tuning rods there, go to the opposite one, whatever one is lower. then tune that one up. So whatever one's highest in terms of tone, tune the lower one up to the highest one, and then start going around that way. And that made a massive difference for me, even thinking about, okay, and then making sure that the other side was done the same, and then what you did was you had another way of, they did like a almost like a rim shot kind of thing whenever you did to try and make sure that both sides were sounding exactly the same after you'd done your tuning rods and stuff. For me, that was a massive difference. I was like kind of going, but just somebody showing me that was like, wow, oh, okay, right, that makes sense because it's live in front of you.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have that hands-on or see how other people do it. And what one of the biggest mistakes is that people make, not so much in the pipe band because they know all about it, but it's more about not tuning the drum for yourself. And I didn't learn this until you sort of later on in the Marines, that you don't tune it for yourself. You're tuning your drum, you go, oh, that sounds great. Well, 6 meters away, it sounds completely different. So what you do is you need to pair up with somebody. You're tuning it and they're telling you, right, that sounds really good, and you need to remember what that sounds like, so then when you tune again you don't need that person. But yeah, you don't want everything tight, because 6 meters away the projection's going, and this is what people do is they crank everything down. And we're on about how do you get more projection. Sometimes you just need a little bit more snare, as in it just needs to be a little bit looser, to rattle a little bit more, to give it a bit more projection. So it's and it's like I say, it's all about education. But I try and do open days. I go across to, I do go across to Northern Ireland and do dealer days, and people can come in and ask questions. And we've got some coming up in England as well. And that's the good thing about, if you buy your drum from a good dealer, they'll tune them up for you. And generally those, if you say I've got the 12th coming up, can you quickly tune me drums? They'll go, yeah, that's, if you bought your drums from them, they'll go, yeah, that's fine, bring them in, I'll get them ready. So it's it's choosing the dealer who will help you as well if your band's new or people don't understand how to tune things.
No, there's definitely that kind of thing. I think when you say know your instrument, it's not just know how to play it, but know how it works. You've already mentioned that. If you know how the thing works and the mechanisms that exist there, then that's going to be a massive plus for you in regards to that. In terms of me, I know you were saying about there's apps and stuff like that there, and you kind of tune the ear. But in terms, whenever you were at the range, were you given a thing where, listen, we are tuning to a particular note on a drum, or was it just left to your own devices?
To be honest, unless it sounded like a bucket, people it was just left to themselves.
Right, okay.
I think people got so used to the 97Ss. Sorry, excuse me. I've got a cold coming on. So the 97Ss, the bottom snare never really got touched. It was, it was so easy to use. And the top snare, like I said, you give it a quick crank, you sort out the height of the tension, and that was it. It wasn't until we moved to the Pearl drums that I was on a promotion course, and I had to do a specialist subject. And you get to choose what it is, but you got to do a presentation and a booklet and all the rest of it. So I did, how to tune a drum, how to tune the Pearl Viscount drum, because we just, there was no experience there. And, it got to a point, the forces progress over the years and things change. There was times where, they didn't do a lot of work and they just went out for the gigs and they do a bit of drinking. But over the years, that's changed and that's changed. And, so drum education wasn't really a massive thing, especially drum tuning. But over the years, that has changed, and there is a need for it now, and the guys understand a lot more than they did 20 years ago about tuning drums. But yeah, so I think the guys know what sort of sound they're after. I mean, your drum's got to sound pretty bad for somebody to say, right, your drum needs tuning. As long as you keep on top of it, you put new heads on, depending on your band. I imagine like the Raven, they should be changing their heads twice a year for the snare drums. The top heads, bottom ones will probably be okay.
So you say what, about twice a year for heads?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, and that's just to make sure that they stay within that sound range, isn't it? That you getting, because that's you getting the benefit of the snare mechanism as well. Because if you've just constantly on the same the older the skin gets, the less pliable it is, and all that kind of stuff. Weather, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just stretches. If you imagine an elastic band and you keep stretching it and stretching it, it's just getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, isn't it? It's the same with the head. The more you keep cranking it down, it just gets thinner, and it gets to the point where actually it's not doing anything. It's making it sound worse.
Yeah, and
So
that's where you get that almost like plastic sound, isn't it? Where it starts to sound like really just dead and not nice. So it doesn't actually sound like a snare at all.
no, so I mean, if you learn how to know how your drum works, how to tune the drum, know when the heads need changing, know what to do, how to clean it, what to use, what if it gets wet, the drum should be lasting years and years.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about as well, when you were talking about cranking snares, whenever a snare starts to protrude, the top snare starts to protrude on the skin, I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen this where you seeing somebody walk, and it's almost like there's the snare looks like it's raised up in the middle of the drum. That's the tension on it's way too high, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, if you got the middle of the drum
Mm-hmm.
and you can see the snares coming through, I mean that's way too high. And what's going to happen is you're going to be hitting the snares. You're going to get nothing because the snares aren't going to vibrate because you're literally, other than the bit of mylar that's going across the top, you're just hitting the snares. It's going to sound absolutely horrendous. Where if you can keep the snares at that tension, but like I said, drop the height so it comes down little bit, so that they're then just touching as opposed to
Yeah.
trying to force it'll be a different
Yeah.
sound. Now, sometimes people do take the sides up and they do push, and especially in the pipe band world or the high tension world, that's a thing. And it is to a certain degree on some twin snares, but not to the point where you can
Yeah.
literally, it's like a
You're
bridge.
seeing a
But
ridge on either side, I think, and I think that's, but that's people what they're thinking of in pursuit of a better snare sound, is they think that the tighter that goes up there, then the better the snare sound's going to be. But as you say, it should be just underneath that where that skin is, where you just when you hit it, and it'll just because that's where the resonant that's where the snare sound actually comes from, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. If you got your snare pushing right the way through, you're not going to get the vibration. So it's literally just got to be touching, just sitting under, and you'll get a great sound. If you're constantly cranking it down because the head needs changing, then you're just going to be doing that all season.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think
It's
no, it's definitely one of those things that I think, I suppose it's easy me sitting here kind of talking about it, but it's, but I think in terms of when you think of the amount of money that bands here have invested in their instruments and stuff, it definitely would be in their best interest to maybe kind of find some of the stuff out so that they get the longevity and the better sound and what they're looking for. And what I'm kind of thinking of is, I'm sure maybe sometime you're over, is that we do like a wee kind of a joint kind of workshop kind of thing. One of the things I was thinking of was the Meet the Parade's 100th episode will be in the new year. And maybe trying to do something, like a live podcast and maybe some, kind of masterclass workshop type things to kind of go along with some stuff and, invite people along and have, spend time with some people and go here. If you want to know about this, bring your stuff along and let's learn together. If you're up for that there, man, I think that'll be brilliant.
Yeah, well, I think I was coming across early next year, anyways, for a dealer day. So if we can tie it all in at the same time, then why not? If we can't tie it in at the same time, then I'll come across anyway, and we'll get something sorted. But
yeah,
that sounds great.
No, that'd be brilliant. I think it just because you say drum education and just education in general about instruments is extremely important, and that's definitely one of those things that that I try to recommend to some people, even with the flute, in terms of how you look after it, the type of oil that you're using on it, and making sure that if you're comfortable enough to take your keys off, you take your keys off before you oil your flute, or you're putting pods on to make sure that or something in underneath your pods to make sure that they're not getting oil on them and all this kind of thing. So it's, how do you look after your springs and all this kind of stuff? There's loads of things that you can be doing to make sure that your instrument's always in tip top condition. One of the things that I've talking to some drummers here in regards to the difference between slings and harnesses, and obviously from the military perspective, for the best part, slings are what's being used. What kind of what would you say are some of the advantages, disadvantages that using a sling comes with, and how can you make the idea of using the sling maybe a tad more comfortable, or make the walking with the drum a bit more easier? Because I know that's one of my standout stories for me was whenever I walked with our band many years ago as a drummer, and I wasn't the fine shape that I am now. I was an absolute, I was a skinny wee runt whenever I walked with a drum, and we were carrying Premier Royal Scots. And now those things, most people will realize, those things are not light. And I don't know how many miles I walked my first play with them as a drum, and I was absolutely dead carrying that thing. Now, but there are things that you can do to kind of help out with your comfort and all that kind of stuff. What kind of things will help a drummer in regards to the comfort level that they have in terms of playing while they're marching?
Okay, so let's touch on the slings and the harnesses. The harnesses have massively progressed over the years. You know, at one point it was just literally it was straight over, and you know that thing that came down, which then spread the weight over your shoulders, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
but then stopped your chest from expanding. You
Yeah.
know, so you got this heavy drum, whether it's a bass drum or a snare drum, pushing down, and your chest can't you know you can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, you know, there's a company in America called Randall May. He makes a lot of the harnesses, well, pretty much most of the harnesses for the US. He then adapted his to have like a little bracket so you could then maneuver it. So it basically came down and then it would come out and down, so your chest could move up and down. And then it changed to, rather than it being just over your shoulders, it went to the back, and it put like a bracket in the back of your shoulders to stop them from moving, so it kept you straight. And then they did an inflatable one at the back. So I mean, that alone, just his harness is progressed so much over the years. There's a company in France called Physiodrum, and this is such and I'd love to try one because it looks amazing. But it hangs over your shoulders, so just a little bit there comes over, and it's like tubing, and it comes round to the front, and then you clip another one on, and then you stick your drum on. So there's nothing on the front at all.
Wow.
The tubes come around the side. Which, you know, if you're trying to put under a uniform, it won't work. But if you don't mind it going over the top, it would be fine. Slings, you know, slings are a strange one. If you're playing traditional grip, then obviously you don't want your drum straight because it's unnatural to do stick work. Where if your drum's on an angle, that's why this grip was made like that, so you can play your drum on an angle. Now I know in Northern Ireland a lot of people use leg rests, but you know what is a bit my pet hate if I'm being completely what happens is one, the drum's got to, it goes straight, then you've got to move the hook around so that the graphic's straight, it off centers everything. And for some reason, as soon as you put a leg rest on a drum, people stop bending their leg, and it's like all of a sudden they've got a peg leg, and they're now marching with a leg that doesn't bend just because they've got a drum rest on, which is above the knee anyway. So I've never really understood that, but yeah, they're my pet hate. I understand why people have them, but if you're playing traditional grip and doing stick work, it's not ideal. I know people will go, "Wow, we do it," and that's right, but proper stick work is so much easier if your drum's on an angle.
On an angle. Yeah, no, and I get that, and because there's obviously a lot of bands here that do the stick worker all have straight drums, and I always thought the rationale behind that was less air to travel through in regards to getting the stick from the drum to where you want it to be and stuff, but then there's obviously a lot of bands here who still like my own who haven't made any venturing into the stick lifting world and probably never will. In that regard, and I think, but sometimes you look at some of the drummers and their sticks are going that high anyway that they might as well be stick lifted.
I mean, stick work. We can touch on this slightly. It's once you know the basics of it, it's so easy. And you see the Marines doing all their bits, and it looks complicated. It's not complicated. They've got some set patterns, and once you've learned them, you can put it into any march going, and it's so easy. I took it across to the band I teach in America, and they took it on, and it's an easy thing to teach. And I taught for a little bit at Omar and really pushed them for it and what have you.
Yeah,
it's not hard. It's just you've got to have that devotion, and you've got to listen and do what's being told.
Is there a sense that that sometimes, because I know this is probably just where maybe I get a touch on the critical side, is that for me I watch some bands and they're doing stick work, and I look at it and going, "You're drumming suffering as a result of this, and we're going for style over substance here." And I'd rather you were playing your drum settings more effectively than worrying about whether you're flamboyant enough to be able to carry off the stick work.
Yeah, I mean, what the stick work can do is it can make if you got a lot of drummers who aren't very good at drumming, you can put stick work into the march, which means they've got less to do. So you can turn it to your advantage. So if you're meant to be playing dat da da dat digga digga ders or something like that, but instead of that they're just going through it. They don't have to worry about that as long as they get the stick work right. So yeah, it can help and it can hinder. So if
Yeah.
if you're going to do something, it needs to be doing well. Doesn't matter if it's simple or whether it's hard. Whatever you do has got to be done well. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, because I think for me, whenever you see that, there's a definite lag between, where or the position of the sticks are coming up to you, and that that's someone compensating for the fact that they know they need to get their stick back down for a beat or an accent or something that they're trying to do, and then it has an impact. And I think for me, once you start concentrating more on that than your actual drumming technique, then I think the only thing it suffers is the bond, because then for me it removes something of the solidity of the performance.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own idea. If they're coming down on the beat, you know, is that down on the beat or is that down on the beat? It's trying to
Mhm.
get everybody to understand. But one of the hardest things you can teach is somebody to march doing stick work, playing off beats. If
Yeah,
you can do that, you can do anything. But you'll be surprised how much time you've got to spend with somebody just with a bass drum beat going, right, just march. Now do your left stick. Now do your right stick. Right, now start lifting them up. It's hard. If you've
yeah,
never done anything like that before, and there's rules to stick work as well. If you don't do stick work in if it's just a single bar, it's got to be longer than a bar, and otherwise it looks weird. And there's doing off beats can be done correctly and can be done
sure.
incorrectly, which look a bit strange and forced. So it's not just a case of doing stick work; it's doing stick work correctly, and
Yeah.
it's having the right instructors.
Yeah, and I think that as long as something is enhancing what you do as a band, then fantastic. That's great. Knock yourself out, go for it. But I'd say, but if it's taken away from the basics for me, then I think maybe sometime in a rehearsal room, before it's on the road is a good idea. Do you know what I mean? Don't be just in such a rush to get out on the street and do something. And I think that's one of the things that I don't think it's one of the things that steered us away in terms of the Predator Raven away from it. It's just you'd mentioned something earlier, even within the Marines in terms of tradition. And is this going beyond the level of the tradition and stuff? And if that's introducing either tech or whatever it happens to be. But I know for us, for the Raven, it's like going there's a way that we walk and there's a way that we play, and that's it. You know what I mean? And if you start messing with that, then people's feathers get ruffled a wee bit, and you know what I mean. And,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's not worth that. Not that there would ever be a push for it, but I think a push for precision and more, perfecting your technique is definitely there, and you don't need to be stick lifting or doing stick work in order to improve your technique or anything. That's I suppose that's maybe where I'm heading with that. Yeah,
yeah, and going back to the accessories, one of the best things you can have is a metronome.
yeah,
You don't have to buy one. You've got a phone. I guarantee there's a free one online. Just
yeah.
download that. That'll do more for you than anything else. Whether you're doing stick work or whether you're not doing stick work, just having that constant pulse for you to learn your music or your stick work or whatever makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think and I think that that's useful in regards to, because bonds have got people talk about the Raven having a that steady pace that they have. People can go, like, we could march alongside you guys all day because of the pace you do work out, and I think we've kind of worked it out that we're hanging around about that 104, 105 beat per minute kind of thing, which is maybe a bit slower than most marching paces and stuff like that. But it's a good walking pace, in terms of people kind of feeling like they can dander along. But I think that's something that the drummers, started to do for a while. There was the metronome going. The bass drum had a metronome. Now it wasn't, bleeping out loud, but it was just in front of him. You could see listen, this is where I need to be at. And it was a great way for them to train themselves and that. But I think
Yeah.
if you know where the pace of your band is and you're practicing at home, either on pod or on your drum, then getting the metronome out is a good thing. And I suppose even from a flute player's perspective as well, if you know your band's playing 104, 105, practice your tunes to that beat, and you'll find your technique improving as well.
No, definitely. You can't go wrong with a metronome. It's the first thing you get taught. Any sort of school of music doesn't have to be the Royal Marines. It could be any around the
Yeah,
world. You know, whatever you're learning, that's the beat you need to keep it to. There'll be a metronome somewhere.
yeah. So, in terms of maybe some of the accessories and things that you've seen over the years that you would consider to be innovative, what kind of things would you say have stood out for you that have maybe, don't want to say changed drumming, but you know what I'm kind of getting at, things that have either made things, either better for people or have enhanced people's practice regimes, marching techniques? Well, what kind of stuff
I mean,
are you seeing?
obviously pads have developed throughout the years. I mean, predominantly they're all very similar. Initially, it was just a bit of rubber on a bit of wood, and they're still being made like that. Although some don't look like that, and then you're getting. I remember buying my best man a drum pad. I mean, that's going to be about 25 years ago now, and that had ball bearings in.
Right.
And that was 25 years ago. Now, in the drum set world, they're just sort of showing up now, and they've been around for so long that
Yeah.
they're sort of half gone out of fashion and come back in again. So, I think when it comes to pads, you'll never find a pad that's like playing on a drum. I have never, doesn't matter how many I've tried. It's just whatever feels good for you and makes you want to practice. But pads are a prime example. There's so many out there. So talking about heads earlier on, Evans, they do a thing called a DB1,
Right.
and it's a mesh head, but it's then got this plastic under it. And basically it's for playing indoors. But if you were to put it on a drum, knock all your snares off, that plastic then vibrates and sounds like a snare. But it's very, very quiet. Obviously, you can't bang 10 bells out of it.
Uh-huh.
But if you just want to practice indoors, you could be in your bedroom and your parents downstairs wouldn't hear it, and you'd be playing on a drum. So you could stand there with your sling on, practice your stick work. So you're still doing your practice, and because the problem with pads is, especially if you're doing stick work, people just do this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're going to go to parade and do this, and it's completely different. So this is the thing I try and get across is people say practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent. So whatever you're doing, if you're just doing that around the pad without noticing it, that's what you'll do. I mean, that's over exaggerated, but you need to practice how you perform, and then that when you do go out, that's the same. So I always like to practice with a pad either on a stand or on the drum, so it's there. There's so many pads out there on stands, which is great. You get your posture, you get your playing position right. You can look in front of your mirror, get your drumming right, make sure you look good, and all the rest of it, everything's right.
So you would recommend, definitely, if you're practicing on a pod, that it's on a stand, and if you play your drum tilted, tilt your pod, and if you play straight in your pod, is that what?
Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, I've done that since I joined the Marines. We were given a pad that tilted. It was a Bill Sanders pad at the time, and then I got pads for the Marines in 2015, which was a hard rubber, like really hard rubber. It's like an American style pad, and they came with stands, and we used them. But the good thing about them was we could take the pad off and stick it on the drum.
Right. Okay.
So you could either wear it and practice indoors, or you could just put it on the stand and play indoors with the pad on. But there is other bits. I've got some bits here actually. So there's.
Okay.
Let me see if I can dig them out. So with going on to practice bits, so you've got stuff like these, and these are basically sticks, two different types of sticks with rubber ends. So you don't even need a practice pad. So if you're going away on holiday or wherever, and you just want to throw some sticks in your bag, so these are Vic Firth Core Masters. They're sort of not thick. They're like a really thick kit stick. So they're like a drum corps style. This is really bouncy.
Right. Okay.
And then this is an Agna R1. This is more like a pipe band stick. Basically call them a matchstick for obvious reasons. not as much bouncy, but I prefer the look of these and the feel of them. So if you're going away on, I don't know, wherever, and you just want to keep your chops up, you can just throw some of these in a bag, and you can drum on anything, on
Right. Okay.
bricks, wood, wherever you're at. Kitchen tables. You don't need to take your pad with you, so that's a good thing to take.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the other things, I think this is what started this conversation off, was this sort of survival kit.
Uh-huh.
So and this is something when you go across and see the bands, you always see the bass drummers and there's people carrying spare heads.
Uh-huh.
But you need to have spare everything, because you never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
So I basically just keep it's basically just a bag of everything, and as you can see, it's all labelled up. And the reason for that is if anybody from a corps needs to get something, they're not rooting through; they can quickly find out where it's at, and they can get it.
Uh-huh.
And I suppose one of the things we've not spoke about is drum keys.
Yeah.
Once you get your drum and you get your case, the next thing you need is sticks and keys. And drum keys are so important that you get the right one, and it's comfortable, and it's because if you got especially a high tension drum, a little drum key, it's going to rip your arms to shreds.
Yeah.
So you need like a good T-bar one.
Good T-bar, yeah.
So I came across this little multi-tool. It's made by a drum company called Tama, and it's got a whole variety of things on. So it's basically got a keyring attachment. It's got all the hex nuts, things. It's also got a screwdriver. It's got, so inside every drum, so let's say an RS1, you've got these lugs. Now on the inside, everybody uses the same screw. So that's on there. So it doesn't matter what drum it is, whether it's a Pearl or Premier, you can get in there and take your lug off if needs be. It's got a drum key on it. It's also then got another drum key that turns into a handle. And this is a strange one. I bought this for a function I will never ever use, and which sounds a bit strange, but I just thought it was really cool. And basically, it's got a hole there. So if you imagine a drum kit and you've got cymbals, and it's basically for a wing nut. If your wing nut's that tight, you just slot it in, and it gives you more to grab hold of rather than a tiny little one. I'll never ever use that function, but I just thought it was such a cool thing. But I just keep that in my bag along with some other bits, and there's everything from key wires, snare ribbons, polish, tape, hoop tape, and cloths, and all sorts there. And I just keep that in just in case I need it.
So just go back over that. I think you cut out there a wee second there, and we lost a wee bit of that there. So what's the main stuff that you have in your drum survival kit there?
So I've got the multi-tool, as you've seen. Yep. I've got drum keys, spare snare wires, because if one thing's going to go, it's going to be your snare wires or your heads. And then I've just got other bits in, like spare ball feet, the feet that go on.
Yep.
Spare lugs, claws, just anything that you'll need part of your day-to-day spare bits of kit. It's like getting a spares kit for your flutes. You're gonna need spare pads, springs, keys, maybe oil, I don't know, thread cotton, wax cotton, or whatever is used. It's just getting everything for all eventualities. Even to the point where, I don't know if you've seen these magic erasers.
Right.
You used to see them in B&M and places like that. And all that does is, if you've got marks on your drum skin, you just rub it off. It just takes because what happens is people go home, they'll play on the table, they'll play on whatever, and the top of your drum skin, the top of your drumstick gets dirty, but nobody cleans it. So and then what happens is, when you're playing your drum head, that dirt transfers and you start getting all this dirt. So you can either rub it off with one of these, or you can just get your drumstick and just do that and just clean the end of it, and then you're good to go. So there's just a range of bits there that'll suit any sort of eventuality.
What about gloves? Because one of the things we get, obviously, a lot of most bands over here, their drummers are wearing gloves. They're either wearing weight gloves, or they're wearing. Some people might have like grips on their gloves and stuff. What kind of things did you wear, or would you recommend wearing if you have to do the weight glove thing?
So when I first joined the Marines, we used the white cotton gloves, and we didn't know anything different other than you just had to hold on to them. And what you'd end up doing is you'd either put your hand under the tap before you went on, just to wetten them up, or you'd lick your sticks just to get a bit of grip. And then these gloves with what they call permadots came out, and we started using them, and it was great. And you could really play, and your stick work was great. And then we did Horse Guards Parade, and they said, right, we're going to go. The TV's going to be there. You can't wear these gloves. You've got to go back to the other ones. Everybody panicked because it was, you got so used to just having that grip, and then going back to these gloves where literally you could just do that.
Sure.
And obviously, the last thing you want to do is drop a stick on a parade like that, because it's about 45 minutes long, and you don't want to be marching up and down with one stick. So yeah, I mean, the sort of rubber gloves are great. There's different ones out there. Some have got this sort of wristband there that is really small, which is what you want to try and do is get the sort of slightly longer one. So when you've got your uniform on, and if you're doing stick work, you're not seeing half of your wrist.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would highly recommend them. What it does is give confidence. Where if you put cotton gloves on people, the confidence will, especially if they ever drop a stick, it's hard to get that confidence back. So let's not get that into the habit. Get them the rubber gloves, and they'll be great.
Yeah, and what about keeping spur sticks on hand? Because I know some bands here got for a long period of time were having spur set of sticks on the sling. And then some people had, spur set of sticks that were attached to the drum. There was you guys did you carry anything like that? You just had one set of sticks and that was it?
Well, yeah. And to be honest, in my entire, 22 years career, I think I saw maybe, I don't know, I don't even think 4 sticks dropped. It just, but I guarantee you, once you've done it once, you won't do it again. So I'm not really up for these, these stick quills with 3 sticks in, or the little accessories with 2 sticks in, because, you don't really need it. It's just what it does. It gives you a false sense of security that if you do drop it, you've got another one.
Yeah.
Let's not. It's something else for you to leave behind. And then if you haven't got it, you're going to be panicking that I dropped a stick, I haven't got anything. So I don't know. I know I'm a bit harsh, but that's.
But then that comes from that regimented approach that you went through for, X amount of years, in terms of that military kind of approach to this is how things get done, and I think, because of the way that we try and replicate some of that there, but we were never privy to any of that. It's not like, we were being drilled, day in, day out, in terms of that there, band practice twice a week if you're lucky, and you pick up from the person that you're learning from, really.
I mean, having the sticks on the drums, it's, I'm not a massive fan of it. There's nothing stopping the bass drummer having a little thing on his belt with a couple of spare sticks, and you don't need everybody to have sticks. It's not, it's not changing the guard in London. It's a lot more relaxed. You've got people from your band following you around the routes. They could have a set of sticks. It's just in case the eventuality is somebody drops a stick. I mean, I've never dropped a stick, but I have had to give my stick away to somebody who had. And basically, we did it was for a gig for the Royal Marines Reserve, and we'd done this new drum static, and only he knew it, the solo part, and he dropped his stick, and everybody knew what was going to happen. It was like, if he doesn't get a stick, we're not going to be able to do the last static. And nobody was giving him his stick. Like nobody would pass their stick across to this guy. And in the last counter march, I thought, it's going to have to be me. So I basically give him my stick, and I'm there with me one stick and me biggest pointy finger I can find. With me. And I saw the audience; they were all watching, and then they just went, and I just saw everybody's face just concentrate on me with this. Yeah, so it's not a nice feeling, even when I didn't drop it myself. But it's if you do it once, you won't do it again. It's just something that happens now and again. But it's like I said, in 22 years, I think I saw it happen 4 times, and sometimes that was when they were doing rim shots and it bounced off. So
no worries. So in terms of maybe bringing things to a bit of a close, then Stu, top 5 tips or top 5 accessories you could recommend to people, in terms of, one, helping them with their either their technique or keeping their drum, in pristine condition, or something that's just going to help them out. I know you've kind of mentioned a few throughout the conversation tonight, but I think maybe if there was a way of maybe summing some of that up in terms of just closing things off, I think that'd be great.
Okay, so I'd say the top 5 accessories, not necessarily for keeping your drum in perfect condition, but for the drummer. But this one does affect is basically a towel. So
Right.
within my drum case, and it doesn't matter whether it's in my hard case or whether it's in my soft case, I have. And basically, this is a thick. I mean, it's really thick. It's a card detailing towel. And all it does, you've seen it. When people wash the car, they just throw this towel on and sort of drag it off,
Right.
and it gets all the smears. And what I do is I put that in me case, and what it does is it protects the drum in travel or transit. But also, if it's been raining, before I put it back in, I just wipe it down, stops everything going rusty. That absorbs the water straight away, and it's great. So that's one accessory.
Okay.
Obviously, the case is number two. That I can't. That's so important. The case. It's worth spending. Like you said, you don't need it until you broke the instrument in the first place. Yeah. So it's don't learn from your mistakes.
Exactly.
The other thing we've not even spoke about is ear protection.
Right.
That is, especially if you're on the Blood and Thunder band, you need to get some ear protection in, especially if you're in one of the halls. I mean, I can't even imagine how bad that is. My left hearing's going through my time in the Marines, and I wouldn't say it was anywhere near that. And once your hearing's gone, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
Other than with use of hearing aids. So
no, it's definitely one of those things. I know, because I've tinnitus, and and one of the things that stopped me doing it, actually, it brought my kind of at one point it brought my even guitar playing to an end. Because I couldn't handle. I played live on a regular basis, in terms of with the guitar, and then we were supposed to be doing it. I remember we were supposed to do a showcase gig for signing for with a record label, and this was about maybe 3 weeks after I had got tinnitus, and I lost it 30 seconds in the thing, because I wasn't aware that there was protection out there that would have reduced the decibels going into my ear, but still allowed me to hear effectively. Ended up after a while, and it was scary getting it done. I had these things called, and still have them now. They're called Elasin earbuds, and basically what they did was I had to go into and get the mold made of my ears, and then they made these things to the shape of my ears. And then whenever I was playing in that live environment, I popped those in, and what it done, it reduced the decibel levels going in, but still allowed me to hear what was going on around me.
Yeah, I mean, what I found when playing with high tension drums, when there's a group here, if you don't have the hearing protection in, everything's harsh, and you're playing what you're meant to be playing, but everything's harsh. If you put the ear protection in, you can then hear exactly what you're playing, and you can hear what everybody else is playing. So if everybody puts them in, you actually play better, especially on high tension drums. If everybody's got hearing protection in, and everybody's got buds now that are most of them have got noise cancelling in. Or you can set them for the outward noise. So everybody's got them. Just use them, because once that hearing goes, it's gone. So so we've got the case, we've got the hearing protection, we've got the towel. I'd say pads. I'd say the next two sort of go in together, because they're not really accessories, but they are essential, and that's pad and sticks. They sort of go together. But you need sticks to play your drum. So make sure you get the right ones. Don't just choose the cheapest. Go into a shop. Every drum shop now will allow you to try sticks out on a pad or on a drum. Try them out, and don't be scared to test them and give them a good go in. And the same with pads. You want a pad that you like playing on, and not one that's just because it was £6.
Yeah.
You're never going to play on it again. So Christmas is coming. It's a perfect time to be asking for car towels and pads and sticks and all the rest of it. So yeah.
And then in terms of top 5 tips for maybe keeping your drum in good condition.
Okay, so
you've got one with the towel obviously there, but
changing the heads regularly, because all you're doing is you're just putting more pressure on the snare wires. So changing your heads constantly, making sure you tune it. Like I said, cleaning it, oiling it. And I think the one thing, the most important thing to maintain the life expectancy of a drum is knowing how it works. I mean, I can't say that enough. There's so many people who don't know how the drum works, and they stick the drum key in and they'll do that, or they'll do that, and they've got no idea how to do it. Uh, so I don't know if there's a top five there. I think the main one is understanding how the drum works, because once you know the drum works, you can then work out yourself how to tune it. You know, once you know what them mechanisms do and how you set them and how you do the height, how you do the tension, and the same for the bottom, you can just sit there and work it out yourself and work out how to get the sound you want. So then once you know how to do it, your life's a lot easier. When you do change your head, you know exactly what you're doing, and you just crack on and get it done. And, you know, the important thing is once you do know, you can pass that on to somebody else and give them the education that you've now got.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's like anything. Know your instrument and know it well is probably a good piece of advice for no matter what you happen to play as a musical instrument. You know, you get to know the inner workings of it, what goes on with it, because if something does go wrong, then you're in a better position to be able to do something about it. Or something catches you by surprise, you have a fair idea what needs to be done in order to sort it out, you know. But Stuart, that's been absolutely some fascinating stuff. I think we went off into areas that I didn't think we would have went into and stuff, you know. And but absolutely delighted to be able to catch up with you again, and especially on the anniversary of the formation of the Marines as well, mate. You know, so.
I know what better day to have it. I think it's time for me important cheese and biscuits now. So
brilliant. Well, listen, Stu, thanks very much, and you know, as I say, really appreciate you taking the time out, and also just to say thank you for the way that you've supported the podcast over the years as well, mate. You've always been a voice for, you know, saying the people get a listen into this here, you know, and I really appreciate that as well, man. It's been absolutely, it's great to have that kind of backing from someone like yourself. So thank you.
No, thanks for having me on. And honestly, I could talk all night about stuff like this. It's probably just as well you're tying it up now.
No, it's same here. I'm absolutely, talking flutes, talking drums, talking anything to do with the marching bands for me. It's like going, let's, talk all night if you want to and stuff. But no, it's been great stuff, mate. And but listen, we'll definitely keep in touch in regards to, this 100th episode. And if that kind of ties up with you being over here and maybe putting a wee bit of a workshop on for us, I think that would be amazing, and people to kind of get that first-hand experience, because there's definitely something in somebody showing you, what you're doing. And even if people were bringing their own drums along and stuff like that there and going, right, well, let's do this together. Let's work on this together. I think could be really useful for people to see as well. So we'll keep in touch, Mucker, and we'll definitely get that sorted.
Yeah, I'm all up for that. The more education we get out there, the better.
Brilliant. Happy days. Well, listen, we'll just leave that there. And again, you're welcome on the podcast anytime, mate.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.